for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Mr. Delvecchio is here, Mr. Silber is here, Mr. Cousins is here, Mr. Deacon is here, and I am here. All good? Thank you. Okay, a few things in order. I announced some stuff for the public before we came in, so people weren't waiting around, but the number one on the agenda, the text amendment requesting to modify Trumbull zoning regs file 2412 has been withdrawn for the time being. No action is required. And number two, 670 Daniels Farm Road, applicant Plasko's file 2415 has requested a continuance till next month. So for that, we need a motion and a vote. Is there a motion, Mr. Silber, second, and Mr. Delvecchio?
The chair.
Yeah,
Why did they request the continuance?
they needed more time to prepare.
Okay.
The next regularly scheduled meeting. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There you go, Linda. Okay, so we have in front of us the next two applications that are related, and when we have these, we're going to hear them together and have the discussion together and have the comments together, and then at the end, we will vote separately and hear them separately when we vote. So we will start the reading with number 3, zone change, 6600 Main Street, 107 Broadway, and Lot D, 0300194. Applicant Angelo Magliocco is requesting a zone change to the properties located at 6600 Main Street, 107 Broadway and Main Street, Lot D, 0300194, from Residence A to BC Long Hill Green and Town Hall Node, pursuant to Article 2, Section 3.2 of the Town of Trumbull zoning regulations, file 2416. And we will also hear as part of the discussion, 6600 Main Street, 107 Broadway, lots D, 0300194, and E, 04, 4 zeros and a 1. Applicant Angelo Magliocco is requesting a special permit site plan to construct a one-story, 12,210 square foot medical office building and associated site improvements in BC Long Hill Green and Town Hall Node, pursuant to Article 2, Section 3212, Article 9, and Article 15 of the Town of Trumbull zoning regulations. This is file 2417. So please state your name and address for the record, and then we're going to go to staff.
John Nuff, 135.
Attorney Nuff, can you just hit the button?
Green button.
Green button.
Red becomes green.
This is new.
Yep. There you go.
Nice, this is new.
Thank you, Attorney.
Thank you. John Nuff, 135 Broad Street, attorney on behalf of the applicant, Angelo Magliocco. I guess we're going to staff right away then?
Yes, right
Okay.
away. Helps expedite. Succinct. Okay, Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application is actually two applications folded, which we're going to discuss at the same time. One is a zone change to change the lots from residential A to BC Long Hill Green Town Hall Node, and the other one is a special permit site plan to construct a one-story, 12,210 square foot building. Before this application was able to be presented in front of this commission, they did have to go in front of the police commission, which they did get approval. They also did a lot line revision, which they did comply with the zoning regulations, and that was done administratively. So they did do that as well. That being said, staff did look at the application. The applicant is, as I stated, is requesting a zone change to combine properties in the BC Long Hill Green Town Hall Node. The neighboring parcel to the south is BC Long Hill Green Town Hall Node. East is residential A along Broadway, and Governor's Ridge is zoned BC. The property across, directly adjacent to the property is empty wetland area, conservation area, but it doesn't, the distances don't require that it be a wetland on this property. So there are no wetlands on this property. The property is 3.874 acres. As discussed, it is a 12,000 square foot, one-story medical office building. There There's 62 parking spaces required, but 80 are proposed, and with 8 EV charging stations as well too. The building will also consist of 33 exam rooms, a doctor's office, break room, patio, learning center, fitness room, and a clinical and testing area. Staff also believes that the zone change is not considered a spot zoning due to the fact that it's adjacent to the Long Hill Green Town Hall node. The applicant has also stated that they will be blasting on site as there's large amounts of ledge. They will also be processing the material on site as well. They did submit a traffic report, the trip generation assessment by Asoli Engineering dated 8/29/24. The applicant will be adding a sidewalk and regrading and clearing along the north section along the street to allow for better sightline visibility. 38 total trips during the AM peak hours and 48 trips during the PM peak hours. With the 80 proposed parking spaces, the hours of operation, and the medical use, the property will not cause any adverse impact to the roadway network. As stated, they will be grading and there will be excavation on the site. They look to export around 32,500 cubic yards of fill will be removed off the site. And the lighting will be full cut off and not go beyond the property. And there is shown on the map a proposed limit of clearing as well too. There were some questions for the applicant that were shown. I did give that to the attorney. The questions were, please state the hours of operation during the rock crushing and blasting. Please stake out the limit of clearing in the rear of the property before the site work commences. What route and location will the dump trucks be going to remove the fill? A watering truck may be needed on site during processing on dry days. Due to the topography, where will the snow shelf be located? Please put on the plan. And the retaining wall must be cleared of loose ledge as the parking and travel lanes abut the area. And the rooftop mechanicals should not be visible from the road, but due to the topography, that would probably be correct anyways. So doing some research on this type of use in this area, I just put some points in the staff report for a medical use. Improved access to healthcare. A medical office for children in a commercial zone increases access to essential pediatric healthcare services, making it easier for families to get timely medical care close to home. Convenience for families. Locating a medical office in a commercial area is often more convenient for parents who can combine medical appointments with errands such as grocery shopping and pharmacy visits in the same area. Economic stimulation. The new office can attract additional traffic to the commercial zone, benefiting surrounding businesses like restaurants and other medical uses and retail stores, boosting the local economy. Job creation. Pediatric medical office can create new job opportunities for healthcare professionals, administrative staff, and support workers, contributing to the overall employment rate of the area. The increase in foot traffic. By drawing families to the commercial area, the office may increase foot traffic for nearby businesses, helping revitalize and sustain the area's economic health. Enhances community services. Adding a specialized healthcare facility enriches the range of services available to residents, creating a more well-rounded and family-friendly community. Improved health, public health. Regular access to pediatric health care helps promote early detection of illnesses and preventative care, contributing to overall public health outcomes for children in the community. Synergy in existing services. Other medical and wellness-related businesses are already present in the zone, and the new medical office can complement them, offering a broader range of healthcare services in one area. Safe and regulated development. The Long Hill Green Town Hall node zone is designated to accommodate buildings like medical offices, ensuring that the infrastructure, parking, and other utilities are already in place to handle the additional activity without disrupting residential areas. More in safety, walkability. Safety and walkability, which is the key to the BC Long Hill Green Zone. Sidewalk connections further down Main Street and a better line of sight, which is also important to the area. These points emphasize how new pediatric medical office can enhance healthcare access, contribute to local economic growth, and improve overall community well-being. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for all that. And Rob, I'd just like to oversimplify things, right? This application is for the property that is directly adjacent to the already existing Long Hill Green Zone and the next property that they're adding to it, which just is a continuation of the existing Long Hill Green Zone that already allows for this, correct?
Correct.
Okay, got it. And they're gonna put a medical building on there, right?
Correct.
That's what you just said for 15 minutes, right?
Correct.
Good. All right. Your turn, Mr. Nuff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, my client is Angelo Magliocco, who is the owner or the contract purchaser of the 4 parcels comprising the subject property. And let's talk about the property a little bit, because it's not complicated, but there is a little bit going on here. So, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, here is the existing Long Hill Commons with Echo and Dunkin' Donuts. That zone change was approved in 2017, and that zone change included this parcel here, which was never got approved as part of that retail project, but it is part of our project this evening. So this is our first parcel that's in the BC Long Hill zone. There's 3 other parcels. This is a portion of 107 Broadway, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. There's another property, 6600, that actually has an address because there's a home on it, and then this is the other vacant parcel to the far, I guess, west or north. Let me show you the, a couple of things to keep in mind. As Rob noted, across the street from us is a wooded wetland area that likely will never get developed, and that's part of the Governor's Ridge property. We have the commercial property to our south. We have several, 2 or 3 residential homes to our east or north, and then there's a largely vacant area here. But what you'll see is that this area is sort of nestled down. Rob, you okay?
Yeah, no, our thing rebooted. I'm following. Go ahead.
Okay, gotcha. So the area itself is sort of nestled down into the topography and this heavily wooded area. Let me show you the next piece that Rob was alluding to. So this is the lot line adjustment that Rob mentioned that was recently approved administratively per Connecticut law. So this is, I'm going to draw an outline around what is currently 107 Broadway. It is a very oddly configured lot. We have no idea how this parcel got configured in this fashion, but this is the home of Mr. and Mrs. Song. Whoops. This is the home of Mr. and Mrs. Song, lovely older couple, and they have this extra property that they frankly never use and currently do not use. So we are under contract to purchase this property that is cross-hatched in blue, and that will become part of our project as well. So that will leave the Songs with a fully zoning compliant parcel for their residential home. So this is the property that's currently zoned BC. This is the next piece that we're rezoning to Long Hill Green, and then this is the map that shows the actual zone change map that shows the 3 parcels that we are changing to BC Long Hill Green. This is the existing BC zone that is currently undeveloped, and these are the 3 parcels that we propose to change from Residence A to BC Long Hill. So fairly straightforward, and then obviously at the end of the day we will be consolidating those parcels as depicted here. So that's the property, those are the parcels, and then just a little bit of clarity, you have a zone change map application before you, you have a site plan application for a medical professional office use. It's not a special permit use, that's a site plan use, and you have a special permit for grading activities under Article 9 of your regulations. So I know you're talking about 2 applications or 3 applications. There's 3 applications. One is the special permit for the grading, one is the site plan for the medical office use, and the other one is the zone change map for those 3 parcels I just identified. The use itself, sure.
Show me. I've been doing this for a couple days, and you're the first person to ever offer that there's 3 things being requested in 2 applications. Right. So it's combined. Okay. All right. So it's included.
Yeah, I mean, what it is.
That's the way they described it to me. I just wanted to
No,
make
no,
sure, because it
it's-
sounded like you were pulling it apart.
It's because on your zoning application, you check two boxes, one for site plan and one for special permit, but they are separate. They're separate applications because what I want to make clear is that the medical office use does not require a special permit. That is purely a site plan use.
That we got. Yep.
Okay.
No problem.
So that was the purpose of that.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about the use itself. We were going to be proposing, and we're going to provide a lot of detail about this, a 12,200 square foot medical office building that will be simply one story. It's an extremely modest size and design, given the size of the property. Our building coverage will only be 7.2% of the entire property. The total height will be less than 19 feet, which is lower than a single-family home that would be permitted in the Residence A zone. And given the topography and the extensive vegetation that will remain, as well as the additional vegetation that we'll be adding, that our landscape architect will be describing, this property will be very much tucked away from any nearby residential homes. A medical office use, of course, does not have any inherent negative impacts. No food, no garbage, no noise. Typical office hours. They will be open on Saturday and Sundays, but obviously closed at nights. So it is a very innocuous, benign use. Very little in the way of traffic, of course. Route 111 is a state highway with nearly 12,000 vehicles going by a day, and our use would be a proverbial drop in the bucket. And as Rob mentioned, the Police Commission gave its approval earlier this evening, and we'll be hearing a little bit more on traffic from our traffic engineer in a moment. So let's talk about the user. We're very happy to report that Pediatric Healthcare Associates will be the tenant of the proposed building. As you may know, they've been in existence for over 70 years, 30 years here in Trumbull, and currently at Corporate Drive. Dr. Andrea Hagani, who is the CEO of PHA, has provided a letter for the record, and it really indicates how this practice, PHA, is very much a part of the fabric of the community of Trumbull. One of the amazing statistics in that letter is that approximately one third of the children in Trumbull are treated by this practice. So when they needed a new space, and because of their success, they needed a larger space that their current location could not offer. And they looked at a number of places and a number of sites outside of Trumbull, but they very much wanted to stay in the town of Trumbull. And this is, if not the only site, the best possible site that they could find. So not only do they treat these number of children, their physicians and their staff are very much part of the Trumbull community, whether through volunteer activities or just simply as parents of children of their own. One of the other nice things in terms of the Long Hill Green area is that this practice will have a total of 11 physicians, 22 staff members who can help revitalize or improve the area along Long Hill Green in terms of their ability to walk from our building down the proposed sidewalk, across the sidewalk on our street frontage to visit the shops and restaurants at Long Hill Green. So this is literally a perfect way to add to the grand list, inject further vitality into the Long Hill Green area, maintain a wonderful business in town with virtually no negative impacts of any kind. As you know, the fundamental test for a legislative act, whether it's a zone change or a regulation amendment, at the end of the day is whether it's in the best interest of the community. And I think that is a very easy test to satisfy in the context of these applications for all the reasons I stated. Maintaining this existing building, maintaining the existing practice here in the town of Trumbull, extending the BC Long Hill Green Zone in a manner that will avoid any negative impacts to any neighbors of any kind and improve the grand list. So with that, I'm going to introduce the full team. That is Jason Montagno, who's our professional engineer from Solely Engineering, David Verespi, who is a landscape architect and also member of the Trumbull Inland Wetland Commission, Phil Cerrone, who may be joining us soon, and Phil Cerrone is here. He is our architect, and Matt Baldino, who is our traffic engineer, also from Solely Engineering. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason. And I think when we're done, I will go through, I'll respond to Rob's questions.
Hi everyone, my name is Jason Montagno. I'm a professional engineer in Connecticut and I'm with Soli Engineering.
Address.
So I'd just like to start, we'll stay on
Just
the
your,
slide.
we need everybody's address for the record, too.
Oh, for our company, 501 Main Street, Suite 2A, Monroe.
Thank you.
So to start out, we have a 3.874 acre site. It is bound by residential properties to the west and north, commercial properties to the east, and we have Main Street along the southern border. It's currently developed with a one-story residential house and a detached garage. And now for the proposed development, we have a 12,210 square foot medical office building for pediatrics. So we will be improving the site with associated paved driveways, parking, utility upgrades, drainage upgrades, landscaping, and lighting. For site access, we have it along Main Street. We're proposing a full movement driveway entrance with a stop bar. Traffic signage will be proposed internally to help promote vehicular circulation and traffic safety. Within the parking, we're proposing 80 parking spaces, of which 8 of those will be accommodating to electrical vehicles and 4 ADA compliant parking spaces. For the town's request, we've also provided a sidewalk along Main Street. The sidewalk will run in front of the site, and then it'll follow the pathway of the driveway all the way before it connects to the main building entrance. We also propose a dumpster pad in the northeast corner of the project site. And I just wanted to touch base, and we will discuss it more about the site entrance, but the entrance was selected based on ensuring that we had enough grade to reach the proposed finished floor elevation, as well as accommodating required sight lines, and to make sure that it would promote vehicular safety when turning left or right out of the site. Moving on to our grading and drainage. So a majority of the stormwater in the existing conditions, it does accumulate within the site, and it will travel and discharge onto Main Street. There are small portions which discharge to the east to the commercial properties, and a very small portion that will go north to the residential. So the site was graded to maintain existing drainage patterns as well, and we implemented stormwater management features such as underground detention systems and a surface detention basin to capture the runoff, reduce peak flows off-site, and ensure that we were still meeting the water quality requirements. The underground system is located in the north area in the parking area. That will collect stormwater runoff from the parking as well as the roof leaders. That stormwater will enter an isolator row to help with water quality as well, before the stormwater then runs through a series of pipes and catch basins, and then will ultimately enter the stormwater management basin at the southwest corner of the property. And from there, we will control the flows to make sure we're reducing everything that is being discharged into the network in Main Street. And I just wanted to touch base about the finished floor elevation. So the residential properties to the west and to the north, our finished floor elevation is around 392. The grades to the north are around 402. So we already have about a 10-foot difference between that, plus additional landscaping will be provided, which we'll touch base on later to provide screening. And we're limiting the limit of disturbance, so that will provide and maintain existing vegetation and tree line. For the soil erosion measures, we implemented enough to protect the site and adjacent parcels from stormwater runoff. We'll have a stabilized construction pad at the entrance at Main Street to ensure that sediment does not track onto the road from construction vehicles. We also implemented silt fence, inlet protection, erosion control blankets for the steep slopes, all to make sure that the stormwater runoff during construction will not be contaminated with solids, and that we will capture everything before it flows off-site. I'd like to touch base on the utilities as well. So within Main Street, we have an existing sanitary, water, gas, as well as telecom and electric along poles that are located along Main Street, right near the property line. So we're going to utilize all of the existing utilities that are in the roadway. So we'll connect our domestic water, our fire water, and we'll run those parallel along with the drive before they enter the building facade on the west side. That'll go the same for gas. For electric, we'll utilize the utility pole at the southwest corner of the drive aisle, and then that will also run to a transformer before ultimately connecting to the building. Sanitary, in order to ensure that we have enough coverage and we can keep up with the grades, since we do have to grade out that southern portion of the site, we'll be utilizing drop manholes to eventually tie into the existing sanitary network. And for lighting, for site lighting, we've included 8 different 8 LED poles, which are all dark sky compliant. They're full cutoff. The maximum height that they will be is 18 feet. So to put in perspective, to make sure that the light will not transmit onto neighboring properties, one of the rock cut walls is approximately 30 feet, which is already higher than the height of the light poles. So that will block out any foot candles from the lights trying to go over to the residentials. We also in our model made sure that there would be no light spillage regardless of the grades. For the building itself, we will have full cutoff wall packs that are spaced along the north, west, and east sides of the building. And also those wall packs will ensure that the building is lit well enough for pedestrians or anyone walking around the building. They will not be on all night. They should be on a timer, so we won't have to worry about them being on all night and possibly creating a nuisance to surrounding parcels. We did run 2 truck turning analyses just to make sure that the site could accommodate both a fire truck for Trumbull as well as an SU-30 vehicle. So for the fire truck, we used Trumbull's model, and we made sure that it had adequate turning radius to enter the site, travel along the north of the building, circulate around through the parking spaces, and then exit the facility. Per DOT requirements, we also modeled an SU-30 truck. I mean, this is a facility that's not going to experience WB-67s traveling through it. We went with an SU-30 per the design guidelines, and we made sure that the truck would not.
I'm sorry, just fill me in on the terminology there that you're referring to with the trucks. SU-30, and then you said something else.
Oh, SU-30 is a state's...
WD-40, I don't know.
Right, yeah. So like a WB-67 would be a full tractor trailer like you'd see it at Amazon. SU-30 is much smaller in size in comparison. So yeah, sorry about that. So we did run the SU-30 just to make sure that it wouldn't cross oncoming traffic lanes as it was going up the main drive aisle. So we wanted to keep everything within that so there would be no hazardous conditions for pedestrian vehicles also leaving. And then I'd like to turn this over to our landscape architect.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Verespi, landscape architect with Rock Spring Design Group, address at 15 Rock Spring Road, Trumbull, Connecticut. And I am also a member of the Town of Trumbull Wetlands Commission, but I am here representing Rock Spring Design Group tonight on this application. We reviewed the landscape requirements and buffer requirements from the Town of Trumbull in preparation for this plan. There are some really interesting things going on here that allows us to do some different stuff with the plan. Most notably, on the northwest side where the rock cut is, the intention is to leave the majority of the existing woodlands there, which the Town of Trumbull allows for existing woodland areas to suffice as the buffer planting. We also have to the east, up against the roads facing Broadway, we created a buffering planting back along that back side, which is a mixture of evergreen trees spaced 10 to 15 feet on center and 4 deciduous trees through that area. And then we have buffering plantings that run down along the south edge of the property, which is a mixture of evergreen plantings, different spruce trees, pine trees, and to buffer that area. The majority of this property is traditional sort of parking lot planting type plans. We have street trees every 50 feet per the town of Trumbull regulations. It's a mixture of oaks, pine, catalpa, native species that will contribute to the environment and contribute to the ecosystem services in the area. The existing or the proposed stormwater detention system will have a series of native evergreen shrubs that will surround the basin, which include Clethrol nifolia, which is sweet pepper bush, and like red twig dogwoods and some viburnums, arrowwood viburnums. And then the remainder of the area, we're using a steep slope restoration mix, which is a mixture of dry season grasses and perennials that will create a robust area. But those mixes are also very good for pollinators and for bees, so they will increase the wildlife services and ecological services in that area. Going up the main driveway, we've got trees spaced every 50 feet, which is a mixture of, at the front, we've got October Glory red maples coming up through to the top. We've got some oak trees, and then in the middle of the parking lot areas, we'll be using thornless honey locust, which provide they're great for urban areas, so they'll tolerate the parking lot condition, but they don't have any acorns or anything like that, which could damage cars. Around the back perimeter, we're going back to the oak trees, which will get a little taller. They are also native trees, which will have good ecological services and help with the screening because they will get taller over time. Along the front of the building, we are proposing fastigiate hornbeams to match with the windows on the building and give some architectural interest. In front of that, we'll have, and below those on the slope, we're going to have a slope planted with some junipers and grow low sumac and forsythia and some other larger growing shrub masses that will mass out and provide nice architectural stabilization for the slopes and ecological services. We've also included some of the eastern red cedar, which is a native cedar, and other native shrubs. We've got several ornamental trees around the building. We've chosen Coosa dogwoods because those are the tree for the town of Trumbull. And along the front of the building, we're using the fastigiate slender silhouette sweet gum tree, which will grow in narrow spaces, provide architectural detailing. It will also provide some screening of the building from the properties above off of Broadway, although I don't think they're going to see anything with all of the other planting here. Below that is a low hedge that runs along the front of the building with some flowering shrubs like spirea in front of that. Next to the little patio space that's been provided here, we've got some buffer plantings of like rhododendrons, evergreen shrubs that will buffer that area, and some flowering trees that will also provide some interest during the season. We have maintained limited lawn areas along the front, along the road, and we have not specifically planted any planting along the base of the slopes because we're intending, or the rock cuts, because we're intending those for snow shelf. So no shrubs there, which would get damaged from snow removal operations. And the same thing at the far end of the parking lot. We've kept the shrub masses back 10 to 15 feet so that there's an adequate snow shelf there for piling of the snow if there are any large storms. And then again, across the whole back of the property here, there would be a snow shelf at the base of the slope. We have also included A tree sheet here, which has got images of all of our trees and shrubs that we've described in the plan. Just quickly running through them. We've got the October Glory Red Maple. We've got the Honey Locust. We've got the Fastigiate Hornbeam, the Coosa Dogwood. All of the different oops. I don't know how to go back. Previous slide. There we go.
David, can I interrupt 1 second?
Yes.
Rob, do we have that tree chart?
This is for the presentation. But I can provide that if you like it.
Thank you. We were doing hieroglyphics back and forth.
Yeah. This can be provided if you want it. These are all the different trees and shrubs that would go into the project, and we can go through them all if you want, but I think at this time it might be better served to either take questions or pass it along to the architect.
The question I have is always with staff. Staff has looked at this landscaping plan because I'm sure the commissioners have the same concern.
Yeah, I just
Street
had
level- the street level landscaping and the landscaping in the back for, even though there's very few neighbors, the neighbors that do exist. Those are the most important landscapings for buffering and for making it look nice on the way in. The ones up top are just aesthetics for themselves, basically. It's the street level and the ones in the rear. So
Correct.
you're
The-
completely comfortable with the
So,
buffering?
so I did talk to one of the neighbors about the tree line in the back, and the discussion was that you were going to plant 6 and 8 foot tall trees in the back. All right, you're going to plant those, correct?
There was, I think on the plan,
The
There were-
QP to the
QP is the pin oak, which are tall deciduous trees. So those are your native oaks that you see all over the place. And then there would be evergreen trees on top of a 6 foot high berm. And I think the evergreen trees were scheduled to be 6 to 8 feet tall.
Yep.
I think that's the minimum required by the planning and zoning regulations.
and how tall do they normally stabilize?
The back in that area, I can't see the code on the screen here.
This 6 foot berm you're talking about is in the rear?
In the rear, there
Yes.
would be a 6 foot berm.
And that's in front of the buffer of the existing vegetation.
Right. So most of the evergreen trees, like a white pine, will get 60 to 70 feet tall ultimately, and will have a lot of foliage at the top. The spruces will get to be 30 or 40 feet tall quickly. I think that's the majority of what we had back there were spruces and white pines. Those grow fast, they get tall. The 30 to 40 feet is easy for the spruce trees. Same thing with the pine trees. But ultimately, over time, they will get very, very tall. But
So once they're established, they should be a pretty good
once
wall.
they get established, it takes a few years for the trees to get established, and then they will start growing aggressively.
Okay, all right. Mr. Chairman, I just had one more question for the street trees along the front. I can see that they're along the sidewalk, and I know there's a utility line above there.
Okay.
Are they, do they stop growing after a certain height? Is there, due to them being so close to the sidewalk, we don't want the sidewalk to get, rerouted and lifted. Do those trees root out, or do they stay within their?
We
area.
discussed this through the team. We can possibly move those back further towards the property line, which would limit any sort of interaction with utility lines, with sidewalks, whatnot.
Yeah, I would, if you can, I would push those further in.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, one of the things we've come in habit of doing is, if and when any applications are approved, final detail of the landscaping plan, square footage here and there alone, needs to be approved, and you guys, whoever the applicant is, agrees to any small modifications that staff would do
Yes.
post this evening.
The plan exceeds the requirements for the town, and we are definitely open to any modifications that the town would request in terms of, move it back a few feet from the sidewalk. That would be fine.
Right. Okay. Tony, you had any more questions for him?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of observations and a question. First, what's the difference in the ledge? What's the height of the Broadway compared to what the back of that property is going to be? It looks like it's about the same, right? 400 versus 396 or something like that?
So yeah, in the rear of the property, it's approximately, to the north at least, 402 for the
Yeah.
contours there. And what was your other question for the grades on was it the west side?
No, like the end of the parking lot, I think is like 396, right? If I'm reading it right. And then the Broadway properties are 402. So it's basically level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the back, yeah, the very, very northern part of the parking lot, I should say, is about 395 to 396.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the western side where there's houses, right? Right behind it.
On the western property line, there are houses in the distance for that, but those, in terms of for grades, they are approximately 426 in the northwest corner, and then it'll gradually go down to approximately 400 and I believe it's 16.
And there is heavy vegetation to
Correct.
the
And
northwest.
And that's all I want to establish.
Yeah.
And by the way, is this, I'm losing my direction now. Is it, I thought Main Street goes north. Does it not go north in that spot? And so are we really looking at it like sideways?
No,
The
we're
north
looking
is
straight at it.
augmented a little bit, yes.
The north is off to that direction.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And David, I had just an observation. I like the lawn. I like the presentation from the street. I like the, you can see the property from coming north on, on Main Street. You can see that whole thing from a good distance. So this looks like, to me, it looks like it's going to be, if approved, it's going to be an improvement in the aesthetics of the Long Hill Green area, right? I mean, it's,
Absolutely. It's going to be a continuation of the Long Hill Green area, supplementing what's already become a popular and successful area, and it's just expanding it and making it bigger and better.
okay. And then, so having known your work from the Wetlands Commission, I think the rigor that you bring that you brought on wetlands to applications, if you're matching that rigor here, then I think it's in good shape.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any? We did so many questions. Anyway, we usually do them at the end. But you guys have any questions for the landscape plan while we're on it right now? No. Okay. All right. You can keep
Okay,
going.
next we have Phil Surratt, our architect.
Is it? Am I doing this wrong, John?
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Okay. For the record, my name's Philip Cerrone, architect. My office is at 421 Meadow Street in Fairfield, Connecticut. I'm just going to kind of quickly just walk you around the building. I mean, you can see the 4 elevations up there. We'll show you the renderings in a second, which I think will give you a better illustration of what the building is going to look like from various angles. But essentially, we wanted to keep the scale of the building down. It's a 1-story building. It's basically masonry on the exterior with a couple of bands of that'll be a slightly different color than the beam masonry, combination of textured masonry and smooth masonry. The entry side of the building, which is the parking lot side, that side of the building, we do have some metal panels on it that'll address up that side of the building. So this is the view as you would see it from the street. And as you can see from this, and I'll show you a section later, the way the building is situated on the site, it conceals all the parking that's behind it, and also because of the elevation and everything else, I know there was a question about HVAC units and screening. All our units will be screened on the roof, but even with that, you won't. This is a true elevation of what you would see if you were standing in the street, and you will not be able to see those units because of where we've placed them and because of the elevation of the building and the site. This is the elevation if you were coming, well, this is the west side of the building, so whichever way you want to look at the street going north, south, east, west, it's kind of a combination. The true north is on the diagonal to the building, but this would be as if you were coming down down the street looking towards the driveway where the rock cuts there. And those are true, and as was stated earlier, some of those rock cuts are as much as 30 feet tall. But that, where the rock cuts are, and you can see the car there, that's where the driveway is that then loops around. This is the parking lot side of the building. Again, as I mentioned, you can see there's variation in the colors of the stone of the CMUs. On this side of the building, we do have, this is a little bit better elevation of it. On this side of the building, that's the main entrance, which essentially is floor-to-ceiling glass there. We do have windows around the whole building that are aluminum-framed insulated glass. And then this gives some covering to the doors as people enter the building. The doors will be all automatic. The building, of course, will be, it'll meet or exceed the codes from an energy efficiency point of view. And the reality is, the masonry actually helps us a lot with the energy because it holds the heat in the summer, and then the heat will pass through later on the day. And we also have insulation walls on the inside of that. This is a section that'll show you, if you were standing in the street, what your sight lines are. So you can see that you will not see the HVAC units from the street based on the topography and where we've placed them in the building. Not to oversimplify it, but that's pretty much the building. The inside is, as was stated earlier, it's medical offices, combination of exam rooms, offices, employee spaces, and et cetera. So happy to answer any questions.
It's pretty straightforward. Any
Yeah.
questions for right now? Rich?
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
Just a quick question on the, let's just call it the right side. I guess it's southeast. Abutting the cliff down to Marissa's, there is a patio. I'm just curious, how far out can one safely build before you hit the big hill? Because it is, it goes out apparently to about 390. There's a big drop off right to the southeast of that.
Can you go to the
Do we have sufficient, we have the 25-foot buffer for zoning purposes, but do we have sufficient buffer for
No.
individuals walking out there? Clearly, it's an area designed for
Yeah, so, I
people
mean,
to be on.
we'll take a better look at it. I mean, on the opposite side of the building, we actually do have railings because the grade slopes off there. I mean, the code is really simple. If the grade drops more than 30 inches within 3 feet of where you're standing, then it'll need a railing. So we'll analyze that. If we need the railing, of course, we'll put it up.
Thank you.
You're good.
Thank you.
Okay, last we have our traffic engineer, Matt Baldino.
So, good evening. For the record, my name is Matt Baldino, licensed professional engineer and certified professional traffic operations engineer with Solely Engineering, office at 501 Main Street in Monroe, Connecticut. So, as part of this application, included with was a trip generation assessment, which was also presented to the police commission earlier this evening, which was received in approval, as mentioned, from town staff. The proposed development would generate less than 50 trips during the peak hours of operation, with the Main Street having approximately 12,000 vehicles per day. So this small increase in traffic would be less than 5% during the peak hours of operation, which is somewhat typical in what you would see for daily fluctuation in traffic. This development itself would not result in any more than what you would see in a normal daily fluctuation. With that also being said, as we've discussed, the tenant of this building, is local to Trumbull and would be relocating a facility from another section of town. We did not take a credit in our analysis for the relocation of those trips. We presented our analysis assuming new trips. So that would be further reduced by the relocation, as many of those people are already driving on the roadway network to access their current location. So the main thing to touch on here would also be the driveway location. So this driveway location was selected in order to ensure adequate sight distance for vehicles exiting the driveway. Just to kind of situate everyone again with the site. So we have the Echo Wine Bar, Dunkin' Donuts location over here. There's a gas station across the street over here. So as you come around the turn here, We would propose additional clearing within the right-of-way. As you can see on the site plan, the line with the arrow demonstrating the sight lines would be the driver looking. And those sight lines were based on 85th percentile speed available through the DOT for this location. Those were not based on posted speed limits, so we did take into account the actual speeds of this specific roadway at this specific location, and are able to accommodate those. So as mentioned, we would minimize the clearing of trees, but we would clear within the right-of-way as part of this application to accommodate those. We would also, as discussed, be pushing those street trees back to ensure that we have adequate sight distance. Also,
Was that a professional way to say you did your study for speeds faster than the posted speed limits? Because that's what people actually do?
That's correct.
Okay,
The
good.
observed speed limits were 42 miles per hour in one direction and 43 miles per hour in the other direction.
Those are suggestions. Right, got it.
So, as additionally, just to touch on this application, would also be the driveway location would also be reviewed by the Connecticut DOT under an encroachment permit application, as the access is to a state roadway. We have had preliminary conversations with them and have discussed the addition of the sidewalk, which they would understand and include as part of their application as well. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the traffic analysis before passing it back over.
I think we're good.
Thank you.
All right, just a few things to sort of tidy up. With regard to the slide deck that we used tonight, I did provide a hard copy to staff. We can send an electronic copy over in the morning, and we have an extra copy if anyone would like to see that. I want to respond quickly to Rob's questions that he provided in his staff review in his email from this afternoon. One was state the hours of operation during the rock crushing and blasting. No rock crushing will be taking place. As I'm going to tell you in a moment, there is a great desire to, frankly, get an approval this evening if we can, so that we can commence work on the property as soon as possible. As I mentioned, our tenant's lease is expiring in his current location, and they're very anxious to start this process so it can move into this new building. And so part of that is that we're not going to be doing rock crushing on site. The idea is to get the rock off the site. It will go down Main Street to Route 25, is one of Rob's questions. And so we can continue work and run as quickly as possible, and so there's going to be no rock crushing on the sites. We're fine with staking out the limit of clearing. I just mentioned that any trucks will be going to Route 25. Rob asked whether a watering truck may be needed on site during processing on dry days. On dry days, again, we're not doing any processing, but should a water truck be needed, we're happy to provide that.
You went right by the hours. You're doing normal construction hours, early morning, late afternoon, right?
Right. Correct. We talked about the snow shelf. Retaining walls being cleared of loose ledge, there's parking spots and travel lanes. We're absolutely fine with that. And then on the rooftop mechanicals, Phil Cerrone obviously described that as well. As I noted, we would very much, frankly, we're grateful that you have a much shorter agenda than we all anticipated, so that we can address any concerns or issues because they're very anxious to get the project moving forward. In fact, Dr. Hagani, who's the CEO and president, and Dr. Karen Michaels, who's the COO, are also with us this evening, also as an indication of their appreciation of the commission's time, and also if you have any questions for them and their operations and how they are an important component and citizen of the town of Trumbull.
Thank you. I share your appreciation because the other application would have been a little more active. So when I walked in and saw you with a crew of 42 people, I said a little prayer that they weren't coming. So that's good.
Okay.
Before we let Mr. Nuff go, does anybody have any questions for him now before we go to the public? No? Okay. We're going to go to the public. I think I'll wait for Mr. Cousins to come back, right? Huh? Oh. I thought, in the future, that's part of staff. Yeah, all right.
A couple of comments on the site plan review, whether the applicant has actually gone through our letter with minor comments. they're agreeable to those comments?
Yes, all of those comments seem readily addressable, and we will make the revisions to the plans as needed to satisfy those comments.
All right, so how many comments are there?
14?
14, we're not reading. Okay.
I don't know.
If there were a couple, we could list
15.
them. Okay.
Yeah, it's 16 on here, yep.
Yeah, they had.
We may talk about them. We
It's
may
in
talk
the-
about them during the conditions, just so that they're on the record and they're at least verbalized once. All right?
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Anything else?
Is it?
Thank you, sir. All right, at this time, we will hear from the public. If there is anybody in the audience who would like to speak for or against either one, come up to the microphone, please. Identify yourself with your name and address, and
Joanne Orm, 442 Pitkin Hollow.
And Sal Arena, 442 Pitkin Hollow in Governor's Ridge. First of all, thank you. This is a pleasure to be here and listening to this request. A couple comments that were made that I took note, specifically around the traffic, is that the traffic would be increased, would be a drop in a bucket. I think they said 12,000 cars per day that go through, less than 5% would be increased. There'd be no negative impact based on this, and that it's best for the community. And the complex itself.
I think it was 1,200 in
Oh,
peak
12
hours, not
1,200.
12,000.
Okay,
It was that's
1,200.
yeah. I would have stood up if they said 12,000, 5% myself.
Okay.
So I think
My-
it's 1,200,
1,200
5% on peak
On peak hours, okay.
Right? So
That-
that's an added 60 cars just during the peak hours.
During peak.
They're required to present the extreme to us.
Got it.
So the extreme would be possibly 60 cars during peak. It's not a
Okay.
guarantee, but they have to plan for it.
Okay, that makes sense. And then the actual office building and for what they'll be doing there as a medical building is great for the community. But I didn't see anything that took into account from the traffic standpoint exiting or entering on 111 from Governor's Ridge. And we have 108 units at Governor's Ridge. As some of you might know too, there have been issues already trying to exit there because of where the Echo and Dunkin' Donuts parking lot is. Although people should be abiding the rules and regulations and going in, they're coming out where the inn is as well. So that's causing some traffic issues there. We also, because of Dunkin' Donuts, even though there are signs that say no parking, but along the shoulder of the road on that side, next to trucks, 18-wheeler trucks, and other trucks are parking there to go and use the services.
On the street or in the...
On 111, yeah.
That's... So, a couple things while you're talking. Those are good points, right? One of them is the review of the traffic flow. Once they have to get the cut, part of when they go to the state and say, we want to add a curb cut, it's going to be an entrance exit. The state does a review of X number of feet and impact to that immediate area as well as the traffic flow. So that has to pass state muster. So that's going to get its day in court review, if you will, at the state board before they're allowed their curb cut.
Mr. Chairman, when's that light going in? Because that will have an impact on all of this.
Yeah.
Well,
One update.
yeah, well, okay, let's, if you don't mind, we'll interject the street light there and that may help everybody.
Rena Baclar, Director of Economic and Community Development. GPIC will be putting up the traffic light next week. Their goal is to get the bottom section set on Monday, 9/23, and then they'll proceed with the rest of the installation. When you do add a traffic light, it does take time to get it fully operational. So, you know, they will phase in the full operation of that light over the next month or so. So
And
it's
that's-
imminent.
and
Thank
its
you.
And its location for the rec for
It will be,
everybody?
excuse me, it will be Whitney in Maine. There'll also be improvements made, as you're seeing underway, to the intersection in the roadway. There's going to be a safe crosswalk installed as well for pedestrians, and we're finishing the sidewalk installation as you see going on this week.
And as a result of that light, traffic coming up and down and coming
There'll
past
be
the
more
Governor's Ridge
control.
will have to slow down and stop now for a
Traffic
light.
will be
It's no
slowed.
longer, it's no longer going to be free flow.
You can make an
Exactly.
exit either direction after that,
Right.
and north or
Yeah.
south of the light.
So I know we've been
yeah.
saying it's coming, but I promise you, it's imminently coming now. The equipment's actually in. Thank you.
Good questions you have, that may be the bulk of it, so,
Certainly hope so. I'm sure that's going to help.
okay.
The other piece is, I'm sure wetlands, Dave in wetlands knows there's been a water issue right at the top of Governor's Ridge as well. It seemed after the whole Echo complex went in there, those were when the issues started. And Joanne could talk more to this, but we've been in touch with the state, we've been in touch with the town. We're not getting any help with getting that rectified. And now what happens with potentially additional runoff adding to exasperate the situation. So that's another concern as well that we have, because it is hazardous because the
Right.
water is going over 111.
So, one of the things that does happen, you may have heard it in the presentation, and Mr. Marr can testify to that. All the work happens before the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Lots of engineering design, lots of back and forth, and part of that is, what are you gonna do with your water retention plan, and what is the effect, and what plane is it on, and what are you disturbing, exactly all the ingredients you think that would have a cause and effect. And as they have described, they have a multi-layered water plan, which we don't go into excruciating detail because that's engineering's job. Engineering says their water retention plan is in place, it is proper for the property, and it meets all engineering requirements for the site, for the town. That has happened. So the best that we can do, and the best that we can provide you, and the best that we can require from them has happened. That's the best we can say.
Okay. Okay, disappointing, but I understand. So those are some of the concerns. We're not against,
Right.
from what I understand, we're not against the having the building there,
Right.
but it's these other issues that this will now exasperate, especially people going both ways that shouldn't be, having more now people doing lefts and rights a little further up where the exit will be from the building or the entrance from the building. It just complicates and makes it more challenging as the 108 units of people come out to make a left or a right, especially a left onto 111. If you want to add some.
Yeah, I would just ask that people actually go and hang out and just witness, rather than just having some data points about 5% or 12,000 or 1,200, whatever it is. It's dangerous. There are no crosswalks. We were promised there are no crosswalks. There's yet to be a light. We have endured this for a long time. There's a school bus or two that stops at the front of our complex. When it's not flooded, we have little kids whose shoes are ruined because they're wading through feet of water.
So I would suggest, I don't know whether it's been done and somebody's told you it's a plan, but there is a crosswalk that's going to be put out at Whitney and Main with the light going in. There will be a crosswalk. And the police commission is your tool to go and request for them to have a crosswalk from the Dunkin' Donuts and maybe to Governor's Ridge. I don't know if it's feasible or not. All I'm talking about is the police commission are the keepers of the street. We can only govern what's built on land and the effect of when it goes out into the street. The state controls on a state highway the impact to the street, and as you heard tonight, the Trumbull Police Commission has approved the traffic plan that they have presented that says this is the traffic we expect, because the Police Commission controls traffic plans. So it's all a combination of how everybody works together. So you do have some limited relief where the light's coming in, it's going to help with the traffic. There is a crosswalk going there, so hopefully people will use the sidewalk and walk across at that particular crosswalk when it does go in.
Can I clarify, excuse me, for the folks at Governor's Ridge, because we've talked before. So I just wanted to clarify again, Rena Backel, our Director of Economic and Community Development for the town. The crosswalk has been, initially we talked about the crosswalk being on the south side of the light. It was moved to the north side of the light, closer to like the Governor's Ridge side. And that was based on feedback from the community, conversations that we had. with DOT, and so forth. So the light will be at Whitney and Main, and then the crosswalk will be on the side of the light closer to Governor's Ridge. Instead of, you may have seen previous plans where it was closer to the Mace building, that side, it's been moved to the other side. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I? Thank you. Yeah, and the other thing is with water issues, I'm sure our engineering department will, work with you to the extent that they can, right, Bill, to try and figure that out. I mean, I'm sure they don't. It's not like they don't want to fix that. So.
Yeah. I mean, you're more than welcome to come in and see me, and we can go over some of those reasons.
Well, the board of Governor's Ridge, we submitted a letter, my husband and I and a few other people submitted a letter, so you should have received this for tonight to review it. But there's been some frustration, and I can't speak for the board, I'm not on the board anymore, of having little to no feedback about how to resolve the issue, and it's getting worse. Our storms are getting worse, we're getting a lot of rain, everything's worse, as everybody knows, and it's not passable. And like I said, there's cars that are trying to get out, there's school buses there now. It's a dangerous situation, and we want this to be fixed, to be safe, before it's added to. That's our message. Please just address what really needs to be fixed. It's not safe. We can't walk across the street to Echo. We have to drive. And even that's not safe, because when we make a right and then people stop and we make a quick left going in, you just take a look at it. It's just not a safe area, and it needs to be for everybody. There's little kids, there's everybody. So just think twice. And we don't want to stop this. We want it remedied.
Right. So, again, people in Governor's Ridge, when it was designed and approved decades and decades ago, wasn't designed for access to walk across the street. That's, 30, 40 years, whatever it was ago. But now you are going to have that. But people in Governor's Ridge have to realize you're going to have to walk 10 feet to the right to get safely across the street, and you will be able to now. So you are going to have a great percentage of relief in what that particular issue was soon, very soon.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Through the chair.
Okay.
There's a mention in one of these letters, maybe Bill can address it. It says there's a blocked state pipe. Did they clear that pipe?
Private pipe.
Not a state pipe.
No.
Oh, that solves my problem.
Okay. Is it?
Hi, evening everybody, and thanks for your attention to this matter. My name is Phil Georges. I live at 117 Broadway Road, which is directly due west of the property, and also next door to the Songs, whose property is allegedly going to be purchased to try to accommodate this. So I like the idea of the office building. My kids went to Physician Health Services when they were up in Trumbull on Corporate Drive, wherever they were, and I like the overall design that's being laid out. But my issue is, at what point do we take and maximize commercial property for the benefit of it being commercial? I'm going to give you an example. So I'm really opposing mostly the rezoning of 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 residential properties to be commercial. So if people think back to the old days of the Kimberly Inn, right? And then you talked about the expansion of Marissa's. The property that is now owned and is commercial used to be residential and actually extended all the way to where Dunkin' Donuts was. Then that became commercial. So now what we're asking for is all the adjacent property that's currently be residential to be converted to BC for the means of putting in a larger building and accommodating extended commercial use. Although I agree with the type of use that it is, and I appreciate Angelo spending actually a lot of time with us as neighbors, talking about how do we try to minimize the impact. In addition, I also oppose a special permit of the blasting that's going to be going on, the removal of 32,000 yards of fill. That's the size of this building. And I'm going to tell you why. We as neighbors dealt with 2 years of hell with the developers that put in Echo and put in a rock crushing operation and hammered ledge for 2 straight years. We couldn't even open the windows on our house. In addition, there's extremely mature trees and vegetation that are on that site property belonging to Mrs. Song that in all material reasons will probably be taken out and removed. So, this started a long time ago, and it's continued to move on, and I'm not comfortable with the town considering taking over residential properties to build extended commercial use property, whether it's good or whether it's not. So that's my major concern. The Long Hill Village Enhancement Plan, as I read it in a SWOT analysis, lists strengths as residential character and quality and threats as overdevelopment and loss of green space. And in this case, it'll be loss of green space. A special permit's being asked for the 30,000 yards. That's the size of this building. We spent 2 years dealing with it, with the people that built that before. My house was built in 1895 by Arthur Gabler, one of the founders of the Long Hill area. And I have a stone foundation. And the blasting that's going to be going on is within 100 feet of my house, which will have an impact one way or another. I'm very, very concerned about that. Even if the proposed lot coverage is less than 30% of the overall property, it's the 70% of the additional property that I'm concerned with and have an impact to all the surrounding neighbors. And is there a legal justification for the zone change? I think the board here needs to ask themselves that question. There are going to be negative impacts to me and to my neighbors. I do work from home. I know what it's like to have that kind of an operation going on. I won't be able to open my windows. I conduct business. I run a sales organization fairly large, and I've got to work from home. I'm going to be impacted by my quality of life, as well as my line of sight directly out my house to the back of where this new commercial property is going to exist. So if these plans are going to be approved, right, first concern is I don't agree with things being converted to from residential to BC. That's 3 residential properties. That's a lot. And if they are going to be approved, I want to see what you're going to do to protect the trees that are on the property and have the tree warden do a tree survey so that we can minimize the impact to the neighbors and keep whatever natural 200-year-old vegetation that's currently there to remain in place there. My whole property is going to be dramatically impacted. My neighbor's property will be impacted, and so will my life. And as I told you, I dealt with 2 straight years of hell with what went into Echo. It was just a complete nightmare, and as well as the people across the street in Governor's Ridge. Ultimately, my point is the town has to be extremely wise in how to develop this last piece of property in town, and especially this one, without taking more residential property to support commercial growth. Those are my points.
I'll comment just once or twice. We don't usually comment, but I'll give you some comments that are not argumentative by any means, just the counterpoints to some of the things that you said. So, the old phrase, if you build it, they will come, right? We discuss in planning and zoning, if you write it or design it, they don't necessarily invest, right? Because we've had other zones where we've made areas of town a zone. Cross street from the mall is the best example. That got rezoned. Nobody ever came. It was a lot of wasted energy. So you may not have been part of or familiar with when Long Hill Zone was created. There was absolute verbal discussion of how far north do we take it and how far south do we take it. Mm-hmm. And we made a conscious decision to wait to let the market decide if they wanted to, because it is Main Street and it is a business district. So the counterpoint to your comment was it was an original design intent, but waiting for the attractiveness or the intent or interest for commercial development to want to do it. So at the other time, and these guys aren't the same developers that did Echo, and this piece of property was originally part of it and was broken off from it, as we know, because we saw those plans back then. And they have said right here, another thing to alleviate something that you said, there's not going to be any crushing over there. They're taking it away, so you won't have to put up with that. That's a good thing, and I understand how that would be an inconvenience. And the last thing is, whenever there's blasting, those permits have to be taken out. Their insurance for blasting has to be taken out. So if there's any negative impact, that's a direct relationship to the blasting. there are avenues with the town and through their insurance for whatever it is. And we're hoping that all the plans are done safely. That's why everybody's employed here, to make sure it's all planned out and done safely, so you don't ever have to go through that. But the whole world, I have this phrase, the world is 99%, right? Nothing's 100%. Right? Nobody can guarantee anything to me or anywhere else. But everybody here is trying to do their best, and some of the points you made are good, but I just wanted you to understand that what's happening in this application is part of an original intent for that area, because it is a business commercial area.
It actually wasn't called out in the plan from 2018.
Right.
When it listed it. It did not show that piece of property.
Right.
That's why I brought that attention to that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else here for or against? Come on up.
Thank you for your time. Angelo DeGretlo, 145 Broadway Road. My property is the one that comes up where the driveway is, and I think this is a wonderful idea to do, better than what could be going there.
Right.
I'm definitely for it. The only thing that I have a couple questions for, like on the curve or the driveway coming up, is pretty much my backyard, and there's really no screening put in there with the architectural. I would like to just see just a little bit.
Up there?
Yeah, so where you see where the 3 roadway lights come up, so that corner and the other lights, that's my property to the left.
So let's pretend that's a clock. Tell me what time your house is at.
10 o'clock?
10 o'clock. Okay. The small hand on 10 is your house, right? So you're
Yep.
this guy's neighbor.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay.
So other than that, I think it's great. And then they also said a time clock on the lighting going up the roadway. What time is that going to shut off?
It would probably be their hours, but if they have security coming in the driveway, but there'll be a light pollution plan
Yeah.
that they have to do.
So the
there'll
only
be no
concern
light
when that light shut off, what about crime?
Right.
So, I
So-
mean, there's another option that they could look into is with those roadway lights, they could put them on like a
Right.
motion, and
Right,
then
so-
they dim them down to 30% and then have some lights.
One of the things we would not want to do is exactly what you're saying, is make it blackout.
Yeah.
That can't happen. But
No.
they're required to put a light pollution plan in to make sure all the light bleeds into the property and not into yours, which they will do. Right? So the main lights will be on during working hours, and they will have some level of
Some
safety
level of
lights
lighting.
that only go on their property and
Perfect.
don't bleed into the neighbors.
But I think it's a great addition to the community. I mean, better than what could be there.
Great, thank
So,
you.
Other than that, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, a photometric plan has been submitted, and is dark sky compliant, and there's no light pollution going beyond the property
Right.
line.
Yep.
So if anything happens, that will be enforced.
Right. So we knew it was there. We just. Anybody else for or against? Okay, hearing none, do you have a summation? And then we'll see if there's any more questions from the commissioners before we let you go.
I do, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and I'll be brief, and I want to remind you that representatives from the practice are here if you want to hear from them as well. But in regard to the first speakers, I think most of the problems are with the existing commercial development and not with what we're proposing. We're certainly sympathetic with those issues. Sounds like Bill is going to make himself available on the drainage issues, and Rena was helpful in explaining when the new traffic signal and the crosswalk is going to be added. Mr. Georges, we appreciate, his appreciation for the design, and also his reference to my clients, meeting with him on various occasions. And by the way, my client and his partners, they're not going anywhere. So if there's continued concerns, obviously, Angelo can be found. That communication doesn't have to end this evening with an approval. That communication can continue. As you said, Mr. Chairman, there's going to be no rock crushing. So the 2 years of hell, and we're certainly sympathetic of that they went through with regard to the Echo development, that's not going to be taking place here. In terms of what the legal requirements are for a zone change. As I went through those, you have to be consistent comprehensive plan, you have to consider the POCD, and ultimately you look at what's in the best interest of the town, and I think all those things are supportive of that. in terms of extending the commercial zone, this is the most innocuous, benign use of a commercial zone that you can imagine. One could argue that it has less impact than several single-family homes, and I don't know that we would be here, but for the fact this is going to be a medical office use. I don't think we would be proposing any sort of fast food or any of those sorts of uses that are permitted in the BC zone, but we thought this was the perfect fit for this type of use in that specific area. We are happy to provide, I think as Rob's memo requested, depicting the limits of disturbance on the site itself, so everyone can see what trees are going to be saved. And then in terms of the last speaker, who resides at 135 Broadway, there is the rock itself that will provide screening to the lighting on the site. So as you come around, there's no real need for landscaping screening because the topography itself will provide the screening.
So, would your client be amicable to at least 3 conditions before I even hear from other commissioners and see what's going on? I think we already heard the letter from the town engineer with, however, whatever the number is with the requirements
Yes.
for you would meet those.
Correct.
And also that your management would maintain the sidewalks, the total maintenance of the sidewalks, including snow removal.
I believe so, yes. Correct.
Right, and then the landscaping plan, as I said before, we would do here if it's approved. The landscaping plan
course.
would be final approved with the town planner post this hearing.
Absolutely, yes.
All right. Anything else?
That's it, thank you.
All right. Ms. Delvecchio, anything before we let him go?
Just a couple things. You addressed the neighbor at 135, but the neighbors in the back, is there also consideration for their site view?
Right, so that's one of the things we talked about is the finished floor elevation of the building itself, as well as the parking lots, and how those parking lot lights are actually going to be below, I think, their level of their home. And then also we're adding that landscape berm in the rear, as well as the 6 to 8 foot evergreens that will grow quite tall. So we think the combination of the berm and the landscaping and the topography will sufficiently hide any views of the site or its lighting from the neighbors.
With the blasting, I'm going to assume that this is the communication with the neighbors is all part of that.
Yeah, so as we all know, and anyone who's in the industry, there's a process that we have to follow. The blasting will probably be several days at most. It's not going to be a continuous nuisance or bother. I think that as we all know, that blasting has come a long way from the days of the past. There are sort of micro explosions that can not easily be discerned, and so that's the easiest and fastest way to get the rock out of there, get it off the site, get the building up, and allow them to move into their new space.
Mr. Silver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I mean, you just answered my question about the blasting, because I wouldn't myself, and I wouldn't, as a planning and zoning commissioner, I would, to the extent that I have the power to do it, I wouldn't want anybody in this town to go through 2 years of hell. I mean, I sort of very much, with lawnmowers, the lawn services come around across the street from my house. It drives me crazy. But so I'm glad to hear that it's just going to be a couple of days, and I think that will go a long way to helping Mr. Georges figure out, get through it. And I also want to just sort of say this zone was created for a purpose, and I think this piece of property fits with that purpose. I don't think this commission intends to make all of Main Street all the way up to Nailers and to the interchange of the highway commercial. I don't think that's what the vision of the town is, so that is not a concern. So this is not about taking residential property. All the years I've been here, like 27 years, those north of where Echo and Dunkin' Donuts is now, it's really, there might have been a house or two there, but it's no stretch was ever residential, right? So it was just unused land.
Well, it's sort of interesting because your POCD says that it recognizes the Long Hill Green area as an area that is appropriate for community-focused development. And so I don't know that we could come up with a better use that's more community-focused than a pediatrician's office.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, all set? Mr. Cousins? Good. Mr. Deacon?
Thank you for addressing the blasting. Just a note to what Mr. Silver said. On the map, if you look at the subsequent properties north of it, those all have Broadway addresses.
That's correct.
Which is interesting because those would have access to Broadway. It would be a significant change to push any farther because suddenly Broadway would become commercial. Now, whether anyone intended that, obviously not. But those lots would have commercial frontage on Broadway. So we appear to have reached the end. Anything beyond this would be far more significant than this. And I appreciate what the owner of 117 Broadway mentioned, of course. But again, there's serious talks have to be had to improve further properties in this new zone because they have the wrong frontage. That's all.
Well, and not only that, but their parcels are just too small. You'd have to congregate a number of them. I mean, this is sort of the opportune space or, parcels in order to do that. But if you were really trying to extend that further north, I mean, you'd have to acquire a number of parcels, including some on Broadway. So I would agree with you.
Okay. Everybody's good? Staff said everything you need to say? Commissioner said everything you need to say? All right. That's
Thank you.
it. At this time, I'll take a motion to close the hearing. Mr. Deacon, is there a second? Ms. Delvecchio, all in favor, aye? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hearing is closed. Okay. To move forward here for discussion, I think we're going to do what we've tried to do in the past is I'll request if somebody wants to make a motion for approval with the existing conditions that we already know, that the applicant will comply with the... Huh? Oh, yeah, all right. Forgot we're gonna break this up. All right, so what we did is we closed both applications because we heard them both at once. So for those in the audience have to understand, we have to change the zone first before we can approve a development on the new piece of property that's requesting to be created. So the first application we will take is file 2416, which is the zone change for Main Street 107 Broadway, lot D3 194, requesting the zone change to properties at 6600 Main Street and 107 Broadway Main Street, lots D30194, from Residence A to BC Long Hill Green, Town Hall Node pursuant to Article 232 of the Town of Trumbull zoning regulations. Is there a motion to approve the zone change to create this property? Mr. Deacon, is there a second? Ms. Delvecchio. Any questions on the zone change part? Hearing none, all in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it complies with the POCD and the comprehensive plan, and the effective date will be 9/27. Okay, now, the next one, number 4, 6600 Main Street, 107 Broadway, lots D030194 and E04 quadruple 01. Requesting the special permit to construct this one-story, 12,000 plus square foot medical office building and all the associated site improvements in the BC Long Hill zone pursuant to Article 2, 3212, Article 9, and Article 15 of the town regs, number 2417. This is the one where I will take a motion with the conditions as we discussed, which are that the applicant will comply with the town engineer's letter with all his conditions, that the owners will agree to maintain the sidewalks in perpetuity, including snow removal, and the landscape plan in its finality will be approved by the town planner before they go forward with build. So those are the conditions. Is there a motion for approval of this application with those conditions?
I'll make a motion, and there's one other condition that had been discussed as well. I'm going to make the motion first.
What is it? We'll do it all at once. What is it?
There was are we having the tree warden do some type of...
No, that's the landscape plan. It's all in that.
Okay, then I'll make the motion as you read the conditions.
Is there a second? Ms. Delvecchio. Now we're questions, answers, and discussions. Anything, Ms. Delvecchio? Mr. Silber, anything at this point? Mr. Cousins, anything at this point? Mr. Deacon, anything at this point? No? All right, the only thing that I will say at this point was, I think this application is in line with what the design of this Long Hill Green Zone was meant for. I understand there were some reservations, and I'm glad we were able to hear from the public tonight, and I hope that we were able to answer some of them. Maybe it's not perfect, but we did get a lot of answers on the table. It's going to be different, it's going to be better. And changing a large mountain of rock into a development that's going to have an attractive medical building seems a good addition to the Long Hill Green Zone at this point. So with no further discussion, all those in favor of the application with the conditions as listed, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's approved. Thank you very much. Good luck. Thank you for developing in Trumbull. Is there a planner's report? No. Acceptance of minutes from August 21.
Read the minutes from August 21st and found them to be in their regular order, and I make a motion to approve.
Second, Ms. Delvecchio. All in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Any other business for this evening? No, hearing none. Motion to adjourn. Ms. Delvecchio, second, and Mr. Deacon, all in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you all for coming.